If you wanted to hear what a loan officer is doing to fund 27 units last month, you're listening to the right episode of the Loan Officer Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Steve Kiles. We are powered by the Mortgage Marketing Animals. You are in for a treat. Today, I've got a buddy of mine. Tony Moore is going to be talking to us. He is a producing branch manager with a good friend of ours, Brett Lindquist, over at the mortgage firm. Great group. Tony, you're absolutely killing it. I'm excited to have you today because, you know, Carl and I get everybody's numbers each month. We're just looking at success stories and we're saying, okay, you know, you'll hear a lot of people, Tony, say, oh, it's market's down, it's terrible. And then I see these numbers coming in from our Freedom Club members and I'm saying, brother, you're seeing a great reboot in your business. Just for our listeners, and then Tony, I want to hear a little bit about your story, how you got in the business. I want to hear about your team size. I want to hear about what you've done to revamp and rebuild your business. But in January, and as we're recording, it's May. In January, you funded 3 units. You doubled to 6. In February, you did 24 units in March and then 27 units in April. And you're on track to do the same numbers this month as well. And, you know, I was just thinking about perspective. Your best month you've ever had was around 40, 50 units a month. But literally, you saw a transition in business and have been rebuilding just like everybody in the industry. And I love the multiplied results, man. When I saw 24, 27, you know, from 3, 6, 24, 27, I said, man, we got to get Tony. We've met, spent time together at a Freedom Club mastermind events. And I thought, what a great excuse to get you here, brother. I finally pegged you down and said, you got to get on the podcast. Let's go.
Awesome, Steve. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me today.
Man, I'm excited to have you, brother. So tell our listeners a little bit about your story. How long you've been originating loans? How'd you find the marketing animals? You know, what happened last year in business, and what are you doing right now to rebuild?
Yeah, so I am a co-branch manager. So my wife and I are the branch managers of our own office. Michelle, you met Michelle before. And we started in the business. We just actually celebrated our 20-year anniversary with our company, which is awesome.
Let's go.
April the 1st.
Yeah.
So we took over the business, though, back in 2010. And when we did, it was kind of a year like last year. We know after the Great Recession and the market turn, we've seen a lot of things go down. And at that time, we took over the business. There was just me, her, and we had one other person that we kept on. Yeah. And we rebuilt and drove it, you know, from the low down bottom up as far as we could. Built up our business. We currently are producing branch managers. We have 7 loan officers, and my wife Michelle and I, our team, we have a total of 4 of us on the team. It's myself, my wife. She does the applications and pre-qualification specialist. She has a loan partner that she works with, and then we have a processor who takes everything from contract to closing.
Dude, I love it. Hey, well, tell me this. So when you're closing, like last month, the 24, how many of those are your branch, and how many of those are you personally?
So that's our personal. So our branch is also in there also, and they're kind of in the middle of the rebuild also. But we've taken a new process that we've been using with both them and our team, and they're actually I've been ramping it up for them. They're all super excited. They're ready to go. I've been doing this with a few other loan officers, which they've been absolutely loving also, and we've had some great results. So that's what I'm going to tell you about today.
Yeah. Well, hey, and by the way, I said last month, March was 24, April was 27. And so that's your personal production. Hey, and Tony, I love that, man. So what you're doing to build your personal production back, you're actually helping your other loan officers in your branch to do the same thing and see results. Hey, tell me about this. What, okay, so this last year, the market shifted very clearly. What did you start doing? I mean, you had to have done something in November, December, and January to literally go from 3, 6 to pop back up to 24 to 27. What would you say is the 1 or 2 things that you're doing? Like if somebody's listening, they say, man, that sounds like me, Tony. You know, I had great business. It came to a stop. I'm having to rebuild. What are the 2 things that they would focus on that you focused on?
Well, Steve, I mean, it's not rocket science, as both of us already know, and it's just going back to the basics. So going back to the basics, and I really just dug my heels in, and I'll tell you, I am doing more DSP calls than I've ever done in my life. I've never, literally in 20 something years of doing business, called my Mondays, my Tuesdays, my Wednesdays, my Thursdays. I even do some VIP calls on Fridays. I've never dug my heels in and said I'm going to do it every day. I did have a marketing person that helped me do the calls at one point, but I never made as many calls as I'm making right now. And when you make a couple hundred calls a week, I'll tell you what, your business your business grows with it.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Well, and talk like, what do you mean by DSP for the people who are listening saying, hey, what do you mean DSP? We call it a daily success plan, and it's, you've got a theme for each day. Hey, how many hours a day do you think you do your outbound calls?
So I'm usually on the phone for about 2 hours a day.
Yeah. 2 hours, 4 days. You're doing 5 days a week.
I do four,
Okay.
but sometimes I do mix in a fifth day sometimes, and I'll talk about that also.
Yeah.
But because you have to figure out where your business is coming from,
Yeah.
and Carl sent out that one thing that said friends and family and your
Oh yeah.
realtors and your
Oh yeah.
others. Well, you got to make sure that you're getting the business from all the sections.
Yes.
So,
Hey, well, tell me this. What is the, like you started, what do you think you did in November, December? What was your volume, and what was the turning point? Like, when did you start digging your heels in and saying, man, we got to turn this ship around?
perfect. I mean, that was the biggest deal. I mean, it's not, it wasn't fun when you look at your numbers and you have these banner years for 2020 and 2021.
Yeah.
And then you look at your 2022 numbers and you're down 60% from where you were,
Yeah.
down 60%. And Steve, we had to go from a team of 26 people at our office down to 15.
Yeah.
And we've been since growing that again. But when you have to lay people off, I mean, my sister worked for us, our son worked for us. And when you have to lay those people off and you can't employ them because you don't have the business coming in, you have to step back and look at it and say, hey, what do we have to do? And
Yeah.
I think that's really where the turning point was, is saying, hey, listen, this isn't who we are. This isn't the business we've been building up over the last 20 years. And this isn't the way our business should be going, right? It's hard to keep your business going for that long. And when you finally see it, I mean, it's like that aha moment that you get, but this was for a negative effect. But we still got that aha moment and said, you know what? It's time to start working again. It's time to figure this out and make this happen. And that's what we've been doing. And at the end of last year, just like you said, November, December, is when I really kicked it in and said, look, this is what we need to start doing. And I started putting this plan together and making it work.
Hey, so you start making calls, you're following the daily success plan. You got a plan of proven, it's a path to proven results. How'd you get started, and how'd you push through the pain of having to do something new and maybe uncomfortable?
So, I did a little bit of all of it, right? I first started with my cell phone, and I picked up my cell phone. And Mondays, I was calling my realtors that were sending me business, or even the Thor's Hammer that I wanted to.
Yeah.
Tuesdays are super easy because it's your Tuesday update calls where you're asking the people that you're working with for business.
Yeah.
Wednesdays I'm calling my database, and I pulled my database out, and I'm really in the middle of still scrubbing it. Over the last, since 2017, I went back to every closing we had. 1,200 and some odd people. I think I'm down to just over 1,000 right now that I'm calling.
Wow.
A few. I'm not. It's hard to say, hey, listen, I'm going to call 2 letters of the alphabet and call them and hit them every. Just pick up the phone and actually call them. If you have a 1,200 person database, call 30, 40, 50 people a day. Who cares if you don't hit them 4 times a year? If you hit them twice a year, that's way better. If you hit them once a year, that's better than not calling them at all. So I that's what I told myself, is who cares if I don't call these people all 4 times for the year? Who cares if I can't stay that ahead of the game? But at least I was making that phone calls, and I've got a lot of deals out of it doing that. Thursdays, we call the pre-approved and actively looking. And I'll tell you, Steve, a couple weeks ago, this was now 3 weeks ago, I called them. 4 people were in contract that we didn't know about on Thursday when I called. And I only had 26 people on my list, pre-approved and actively looking. 4 were in contract. 1 was in contract since Monday. And remember, this is Thursday. Nobody told us. The realtor didn't tell us. We got the deal and we're closing. I think it's still in my pipeline. I think we're about to close it. But nobody told us. A second one, same thing, contract for 2 days. Nobody told us. The other 2 both went to builders and said, oh, we're going with the builder because they're giving this giant incentive. Then we said, well, hey, listen, let us work with you. And at least we can figure out if we can get you a better deal or not, because, it's worth a try. Who knows what's going to happen, but it's worth a try. So.
I love it. Well, and half of it is, and this is what we talk about. Half of the battle is just doing the work. Results come from doing the right activity consistently over time. And man, I love it. Now, look, if somebody's trying to start and ramp things back up, and Tony, and they say, man, I can only do one thing, what would that one thing be?
Well, first, if you're ramping stuff up, right, you don't have the Tuesday update calls because you don't have the 20, 30, 40 files that you're working with a month to stay in front of those people. But the one thing you have to do is you have to do your realtor calls. What I did, and this is where the game changer was, Steve. I'm telling you, this is the one thing that my loan officers, as I mentioned, I have 7 of them. My loan officers right now are so excited about. They're like, we love making realtor calls now. Like we prepare, we prep, we make the videos, we have it all set up to go out. They know when they're calling, they know what they're calling about. Hey, don't get me wrong, it's great as long as you're staying on the phone. If you use did you work or play over the weekend? That's great. But what we're doing, and this is my calls coming up for starting on June the 5th, right? This is Monday, June the 5th coming up. My first call is an invite. We're doing here in Florida, we have the Hometown Heroes, which is a down payment assistance program that opened up. We're doing an invite to invite them to do a education seminar to teach them about the program. The next week, we're doing a program. We're going to talk about a program and talk to them about a program that we have, whether it's a no income program or a bank statement program or a 100% program or whatever you have. I call and talk to them about a program.
Yeah.
The next thing we're going to do is call them and talk about gadgets or stuff that we have. So whatever those gadgets are pre-approval application or different things that they can use to help build their business, a rent versus own calculator, an investor calculator, just something that we're calling them to give them value every week. And just doing this on a weekly basis and always having a reason to reach out to them, to invite, to tell them about something, to tell them about a program. You're calling them to give them information. And Steve, I've been doing this for a couple of weeks now, and I'll tell you, I call this one, and she's doing 156 deals, buyer side transactions a year, 156, ridiculous numbers. And she answers the phone finally after about 3 weeks and says, Tony, I own my own mortgage company. And I said, hey, that's fine, but you might not have this program that I have, and I want to make sure that if you don't, you can send it our way and we can help you. She goes, okay, thank you. And everybody's like, well, did you take her off the list? I'm like, no, she didn't ask me to take her off the list. She just told me she had her own mortgage company. And when you're calling with value to give people value and help them grow their business, they're less likely to say, take me off my list. I started with 105 people on my list. And this has been 7 weeks now. Only 3 people have asked me to take them off the list. Only 3.
Yeah, that's cool, man. So what you're doing is you're taking the daily success plan, like when you're making those Monday calls, and you're plussing that by adding a layer of value and just saying, hey, here's a product, here's an invite. So adding something to the Monday calls.
Absolutely.
Love it.
Always, and you're calling so you have a reason to call them, right? It's a reason to get in front of these people and give them value, and always have a call to action, right? So on every one of these videos I send out on Friday, so it gives them the whole weekend to look at it. And then let's say for my invite's going to be for June the 20th. I'll say, hey, if you can make it, please come to our education seminar on June the 20th to teach you how to grow your business, down payment assistance, et cetera, et cetera. If not, please click on my Calendly link to schedule a coffee or a lunch to get more information about it.
Yeah. Hey, and then so when you're doing, one of the things I just want to encourage listeners to, if you're listening, I want you to know there's always things you can do. Like what Tony's doing is even adding something, and he's doing, he's put together a plan, and here's an invite, and here's what's going. My encouragement to our listeners too, is if you don't have anything, it doesn't matter. Make the call, follow the play, follow the script. You're calling pre-coffee to set an appointment. Once you've met with them, and when you're setting the appointment, it's to learn about what they've done and the success they've had. And it's essentially, hey, I'd love to treat you to a cup of coffee to hear what it is you're doing to have great success. So I think you're awesome. I'd love to treat you to a cup of coffee to hear what it is you're doing to be so awesome. That's the script. And make that week in and week out. And then I love the idea, Tony, you got things you can add value and pop in here and there. And then after you've done the coffees, you're following up your 12-week post coffee. And the script is, did you work or did you play? And it's a great way to just continue to follow up. The key is don't stop the calls, make the calls. And Tony, this is super cool. So you're sending a video on Friday ahead of a call on Monday. So you've got something additional to talk to. So whether you've got that or not, make the calls and you're going to see the results.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you, we're super fired up because we have a reason to make the call that we feel that these realtors want to talk to you about. So making the calls is one thing, but once you start making these videos and you have the reason, we have months out, months planned. We know exactly every call that we're going to make for June. We have a list of what we're going to do for the July calls. So we start planning these calls out to make sure that we're ahead of the game because these realtors really want to hear from us. We're not calling and saying, hey, do you want to go to coffee? Hey, do you want to go to coffee? Hey, do you want to go? We're calling and saying, hey, did you know that we have this awesome program, down payment assistance program that can help you and your clients? I'd love to go to meet you with coffee to give you more information about it, right? We're finding that hook to get them in. That's more than just saying, hey, let's go to coffee. Let's go to coffee. We're trying to find that hook that they want to listen to us to go to coffee. Because I'll tell you, these are a lot of people that we've never spoke to. These are our Thor's Hammers calls. I've never met these realtors, and here they're sending us referrals because of it. They're going to coffee, and we actually have contracts in from realtors I'd never even met before, just have been making Monday calls to, that are sending us referrals and leads because we're staying in front of them.
Well, and the key is, how many weeks consistently are you making the calls? How many weeks are you in? Like when you say weeks of making the calls to your qualified agent list, how many weeks have you been doing that?
Well, I'm in 9 weeks consistent now.
Dude,
I did start this in January calling, but I didn't have the plan in place as good in January. And as I started making the plan and putting it together, there's a few things, Steve, you have to have. First, you got to have a list.
Yeah.
You're not going to make your calls without a list.
Love it.
Get a list. Number two, make it easy to make the calls, right?
Hey, and hold on. When you said list, so go to get qualified agents who do 8 or more buy-side transactions. And so look, if you go to freedomplanningcall.com, we'll walk you through where to get the list and help you with that. Okay. Second one was what?
Just have a plan. Have a way to make the calls easy for you. Either have them programmed in your phone, have a power dialer, have something like Phone Burner where you can just click a button, it just makes the phone calls for you. The easier you can make it to where you make those calls and you can do it, you're going to do it, right? Get yourself away from somebody. Starting actually in June, I'm not even going to my office until after I make my calls. Right?
Dude,
no distractions, no nothing. You got to get through them because that distractions are going to hurt you every single day of the week. So it's not like you're not working. You're putting that time in, you're making your calls, and then you're doing other work after that. The prospecting is the number one thing. You got to get that done and out of the way.
Dude, that's it. 100%, man. Well, and for you to be seeing the success you're seeing, congratulations, man. You're doing the work. You're making the calls. You're following the plan. And if somebody is listening and say, man, I need a plan. And what are you talking about? Like, hey, who are you calling on Monday? What do you say? Go to freedomplanningcall.com. Myself, Kristen, Frank, Carl, one of us will meet with you. We'd love to help walk you through a plan that Tony's following in order to have massive success. Brother, I love it. I love seeing your numbers. When I saw 3, 6, 24, 27, I'm like, come on, you're doing the work. You're doing the work. And so great job on that, Tony. Hey, for our listeners, give us some closing thoughts, man.
The last thing I was going to mention to you, Steve, is we talked about Friday. I don't want to forget that. Fridays, if you have extra time and you don't have business, make it your VIP calls, right? Your CPAs, your financial advisors, your title companies. If you don't want to work Fridays, that's fine. If you're looking to grow your business, you need to work Fridays. You need to work weekends. You need to work as much as possible. But if you don't, put those calls in on the other days, right? If you only have 4 loans in on Tuesday, it only takes you 30 minutes to make your just ask calls. Well, add those VIP calls into those days, right? If you don't have a full database, it's fine. Use your phone. Database is past clients and personal friends and family, right? So you have plenty of people to call. It's just a matter of making those calls, building those lists, finding a way to do it, and making sure you just time block that time aside and just make the calls. And Steve, both of you and I know it. It comes from Mortgage Market Animals. We all know it. Just making the calls, doing the daily success plan changes your business. You just got to do it.
I love it. I don't think you could have said it any better, man. I 100% agree. Tony, thank you for taking time today. just to share with us some of the things that are working for you, man. I love the fact that you and Michelle are seeing massive success, and I appreciate your time, brother.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it.
What a great episode, man. Just love Tony sharing that. Thank you for doing that, brother. And, I love it. Get the list, make the calls, no distractions, be consistent. You'll see massive results. And hey, if you need a plan, go to freedomplanningcall.com, freedomplanningcall.com. We will literally give it to you. It's our gift to you and to this industry. And so freedomplanningcall.com. We'd love to walk you through it. Love seeing the success of our members like Tony that are just seeing, it's a rebuilding. This is what a good friend of ours, Paul, said. It's a work year. And we are working focused on the right activity that produces the right results in a proven plan. freedomplanningcall.com. Hey, also, if you would, make sure you share this episode with 2 loan officers that will benefit or this would help. Give us a review wherever you consume the podcast. That always helps. And then subscribe so that you get these episodes every time they're released, which are on Wednesdays and Saturdays. And we're just grateful to be on the journey with you in this amazing community. Remember this, anything worth doing is worth doing badly. Just get started. See ya.